Kumite Radio, episode number 29 with Andy Wang. He is former UFC fighter. He was the contestant on The Ultimate Fighter Season 5. So if you want to go back and watch that season, because it's a pretty interesting season, it has a lot of funny moments, and Andy is involved in some of those moments. Go back and watch it. But anyways, Andy, he is fighting at Rebel FC 5 this weekend, August 12th, Saturday. He is possibly going to compete for the last time in a cage in a one-night four-man tournament, welterweight tournament. He talks about why he's coming back. He talks about MMA in China. He talks about promotions in China. He talks about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and like what he's doing there in China, like for the past almost 10 years. He goes deep into that stuff. And he even talks about the Tai Chi versus fighter guy that beat the shit out of that Tai Chi dude, and kind of gives us the insider information on it and what he's heard, through the grapevine. We'll talk about all kinds of stuff. So listen up, because it's an interesting interview or podcast, whatever you want to call it. This weekend, on top of Rebel FC 5 in Asia, you have Road FC 41 popping off in South Korea, Wonju, South Korea, not Seoul, but Wonju, which is the birthplace of Road FC. In the main event, you got his name is Hyun Man Myung, who is the guy that fought at Ryzen against Krokov, and Krokov submitted him, but he is a striker, and he is rematching Chris Barnett. The reason why he's rematching Chris Barnett, because their first fight ended with Barnett getting a cut over his eye, and he wasn't able to continue. So that should be a pretty good fight. Those two guys, Chris Barnett has a background in Taekwondo, so those guys are going to probably stand and bang. So someone's going to get knocked out. Also in the co-main event, it's Yeji Lee. She is the high school girl. They're going to fight 105-pounder. Again, she's going to fight Tomo Masawa, who is much more experienced from Japan. So it's a pretty good test for the young girl, because she just beat recently one of the Japanese legends in the last Road FC. Another interesting fight on the card is Jake Kuhn, who is a fighter formerly from WSOF, but now he is part of the Pro Fight League. But he's fighting in an open weight bout against Che Mube, or Mube Choi. Mube Choi is gigantic, and Jake Kuhn usually fights at light heavyweight. So this is a kind of an interesting matchup, because it's kind of like speed versus power in a way, because this guy, Mube Choi, he is a monster. Another fight is a very, very interesting fight. Probably the best fight on the card, in my opinion, is Bruno Miranda versus Won Bin Gi. Both these guys like to stand and trade, and it's basically who is gonna land the shot. Bruno's coming off a loss. He just got knocked out by Nandine Erdine, who is a beast from Mongolia, and Won Bin Gi got submitted by Mansour, who is in the. Both those guys are in the $1 million tournament, and they actually moved on to the second round. So, yeah, the card has 13 fights. So, if you are interested in Korean MMA or just international MMA or Asian MMA or whatever, tune in on YouTube and watch these guys on Saturday night. But getting back to the podcast, Andy Wang, Kumite Radio, episode 29. Suckers. Kumite Radio, we're back, and we have a special guest. He is returning to the cage after a long layoff, but not even really a layoff. It's kind of like, he's just been chilling, I guess. So, introduce Andy Wang, former UFC fighter. Now he's going to fight on August 12th at Rebel FC 5. What's going on, Andy?
All good, all good. Thanks for having me on your show. Yeah, it has been a long layoff. My last high level MMA fight was at ONE FC, the first ONE FC, and it's weird now because ONE FC since that time now I fought in the first one, and now they're on like ONE FC, 73 already, whatever. So, a big part of me kept wanting to come back to fights, but I was so involved with teaching BJJ here, and then I was competing here too. I was doing fights in China. But they have events, and we're going to talk about it later, I'm sure. But there's events here every weekend. There's MMA fights in China, all over China every weekend. They really like K1 rules, kickboxing, and MMA events, and it's really grown a lot. I've been in China now about 5 years, and when I first came here, actually, it was to fight in Rough. Rough was doing a big MMA tournament, so that was right after ONE FC, and they're giving out championship checks. Man, if you won the championship tournament, they're giving you 1 million RMB. And so I came out here for that. I signed the contract, came out here, was ready to rock and roll. But then I got hurt, and then so I just started teaching more. And then back then, BJJ was kind of – this was 2012. Back then, BJJ was kind of like non-existent. But since that time, man, it's really, really grown. It's grown exponentially, actually, here in China.
All right, let's go back to when you first got to China. You said that you went for the Rough tournament, right? So can you explain like how you got in contact with Rough and – how they brought you out there and stuff like that?
So how it works in China is, like I said, at that time, Rough, even now, Road FC has been out here. UFC, they don't have their first show in Shanghai at the end of the year. But all these foreign companies, they have been for years trying to get a foothold in China. So Rough, what they did was they were one of the first ones. They might be the first one. They were able to get a license from the Wushu Federation, the Kung Fu Federation. So they're sanctioned, more or less. So what they did was they're trying to make the sport big. And the owners, they were from Canada. But they're really good guys. And the son was really big into MMA. He was the one that kind of got Rough going. And his dad was the one that backed them. But they're really cool, man. They want to do good things in China. But unfortunately, I think 5 years ago, they were just a little bit too early for their time. You know what I mean? So, they put on a few good shows. They had the championship tournament, paid out a lot of money to the fighters. But then, yeah, they faded away. So I was supposed to fight Rodrigo Caporal, who everybody in Asia knows about. He's one of the toughest black belts out here. And then I was supposed to fight him. And then 2 weeks before the fight, I hurt my knee, unfortunately. But Rough was good, man. And I'm still in contact with the owners. They still want to try to do something, but it's hard. Because in China, like you said, it's pro events, even with boxing, for a lot of these things. Like, all these shows want to come in, but getting the sanctioning, getting all that all the laying the groundwork's not easy. It's really not easy.
Even like you said, even these guys that were running Rough, they are Chinese, right? So they knew
Canadian.
Yeah, they're Canadian. Okay,
they're Canadian.
So what were, like, you were mentioning some of the reasons why they did not succeed. What were some other reasons do you think that it did not work out well in China?
Well, so that's what's interesting, and when I first got here, the UFC office was here. They had Mark Fisher here. He was formerly of NBA China, and he was the head of the UFC office. They're here, and a lot of my friends were working at the UFC office. And I've heard a lot of things. Now the UFC office, they moved to Singapore, then it got dissolved. But I knew a lot of the guys. I knew the guys that put on the China Ultimate Fighter, the one and only. And so, I became friends with them. I hung out with them a lot, and I heard a lot of different things. But I think what it comes down to is, one, here, the sport, people still don't know what it is. Even with Road FC, I went to Road FC as a spectator. I went to Road FC as a referee, as a judge. Or as a referee, I'm sorry, not as a judge. And, what you notice as a referee in most places, as a referee, during a highlight action move, whether it's submission or knockout, you jump in, you wave off the fight, the crowd goes crazy. But in China, every time I waved off the fight, the crowd didn't know what it was. So, I've been refereeing a lot here. And yeah, and it's in different events, different cities, but the crowd doesn't know what it is. So I think that's a big problem. Number two, they weren't able to, Rough and even the UFC, they weren't able to. One of the things that I thought, why I wanted to come out here was I thought there'd be, 1.3 billion people. I thought there'd be 100 million, top level, MMA athletes, but that's not true. I've been here 5 years. I trained with all the top guys. I was the coach for Ning Guan Yo when he fought in the UFC. The guys are able to fight at the highest level, probably less than a dozen, less than 10. And so Over here, I think they had a big problem with that. Rough had a big problem with that. UFC had a big problem with that, which was finding guys that they could, put in against international talent. So all the guys, for example, that they put in against Rodrigo Caporal and Rough, they lost. All the Chinese guys lost. You know what I mean? So I think it's hard, because you want to put on real fights. You know how UFC match makes. They give everybody tough fights, man. There's no fake fights over there. And so I think that was kind of the holdback. The fighters weren't as developed. The fans didn't know what it was. And I think I see some similarities between the UFC, because I was around. You got to remember, I've been in the sport over 20 years now. I was around when the UFC was struggling in America, before it changed hands and all that. And the key, everybody thinks they can do what Dana White does, but what Dana White did that I saw, he paved the way for acceptance. You know what I mean? He got accepted, by the athletic commissions. He got accepted by the mainstream. He got the ads put on New York Times, New York Square. You know what I mean? And that's what Dana White did. You know what I mean? And that was a monumental job, because I remember going to watch the UFCs when I was still a high school and college student. And the only people that would go were like guys, like rough guys, man. Now you go to UFC events, it's accepted, man. There's UFC gyms, nationwide, worldwide now. And, it's just so accepted now by soccer moms, by guys, by kids, you know what I mean? And that's the value of Dana White. That's why he makes $1 billion, you know what I mean? That's the key. So whether it's, Rebel, I'm really close to them. I'm fighting for them this weekend, of course, or if it's Road FC, I want these shows to do well, because whoever can be that first or second or third show that can get it accepted here in China, I think they can crack the nut. And UFC is going to try. They're having that show in Shanghai. But I think that was the hard part. People didn't know what it was. There wasn't enough Chinese guys that could compete at the highest levels internationally. And, the local sanctioning is not easy. It's very tricky. So I think all those things were factors.
Do you think so? You basically, what you need is a Dana White in China, a Chinese Dana.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, because I go on the message board sometimes, the forums, or not forums, the internet, and all these people, they talk all this stuff. They're like, Dana White sucks. But these people weren't around then when the sport was dead, man. Like the politicians were against it. Sponsors didn't want to be involved. Cable didn't want it, and he got away, and he pounded on a lot of doors, man. I don't know Dana White personally. I've talked with him a couple times. But he's one of those guys. He loves MMA, and he made it happen. He let it happen. You know what I mean? And it's very, in my eyes, what he did, like I said, it wasn't just matchmaking. People think of Dana White as a promoter. Okay, he puts fights together, he promotes certain guys. Yeah, he does that. But his main value, why he made $1 billion, through MMA, was because he got it accepted, man. He got it accepted by the mainstream. He got accepted by government officials. He got accepted by the cable companies, which 10 years ago, that wasn't a for sure thing. You know what I mean? That wasn't a for sure thing. I actually remember back then, everybody wanted to fight in Pride, man. Everybody wanted to go to Japan. Funny story. This will be, for the guys that remember me for the Ultimate Fighter 10 years ago. Actually, at that time, I had an offer coming to fight in Pride. So Pride was going to Las Vegas, and then the Ultimate Fighter, they had contacted me, and they're like, "Hey, man, we want you for the show. We think it'd be good, blah blah blah." And then I remember thinking I should do the Ultimate Fighter because the UFC might not be around. The Ultimate Fighter might not last a long time, but Pride will always be around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. So that's why I did Ultimate Fighter instead, because they were going to ask me to fight the one that was in Las Vegas, Pride 33, I think it was. It was, and looking back on it now, it's funny, it's hilarious, because I would have loved to have fought in Pride, because it's gone now. But at the time, the thinking was with a lot of fighters, man. A lot of guys were like, man, I want to do good in America so I can fight in Pride or fight, in Japan. But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, so that was kind of like the mind state back then of most of the fighters then. So the UFC, because at that time, wasn't it like the Tito era and the Chuck Liddell era? Was it that around that time?
Yeah, when I started, around that time when Dana White got in control of it, I think it was right around UFC 33, 34, and they had their first event at the Mandalay Bay. And Tito Ortiz was the guy that they backed. Now, how do I know that? My MMA coach and my BJJ coach is Egan Inoue. And Egan was brought out to the first training camp sponsored by the UFC for Tito. They brought out like all the stars. So for Tito, they had a training camp in Big Bear. They brought out Chuck Liddell. This was before Chuck Liddell, everybody knew him. They brought out Mark Lehman, one of the top BJJ coaches. They brought out my coach, Egan Inoue, to be a sparring partner. So, when Egan came back from that training camp, he told us a lot, man. He's like, hey, man, the owners, they want to make this UFC thing big. They're going to back Tito Ortiz. They want to make him a star. And, it worked out. Like Tito became a big star. He still is a big star. But that's what I mean. people now, they can't imagine how lean it was back then. Like, they're training in a cabin in Big Bear. Now the UFC just opened up $250 million performance center in Vegas, right? But I was around when these things it was a pipe dream, man. So to me, Dana White, like I said, man, like I said, a lot of people think he has an easy job being a promoter. But to me, what China needs isn't more promoters. What China needs is somebody that can get accepted, get accepted by the mainstream, get accepted by the government officials, get accepted by all these different things, these sponsors, all this stuff. Because there's plenty of money in China. Being here 5 years, John, I can tell you, like why I'm still here. There's plenty of investment money. There's plenty of money. Like these guys have so much money, and they're starting to know what MMA is. But until it gets accepted by the government, until it gets accepted by people, because two of the guys I train with a lot, Ning Wanyo, like I said, I was his coach for the UFC, and the other guy, Zhang Lipeng. These two guys won the Ultimate Fighter in China, and both of them are legit, really good fighters, great guys too. And I go out them all the time, but never once have we been outside anybody asked them for autographs, And their shows on TV, it was this, that, the other. So, to me, it's like how it was in America 10, 15 years ago. Back then, I remember Chuck Liddell coming to train with us in Hawaii. At that time, I was living in Hawaii. And, he walked around the streets. Nobody knew who he was, man. So, it's still going to take time. When I first came here, like I said, I thought it was going to be super developed. There's so much money here. There's so much investment. There's so many people. There's so many Sanda champions. There's so many of these guys. But actually, you very rarely run into these guys. I think the government keeps them, busy. Doesn't let them come to MMA so easily. And I thought there'd be a ton of wrestling coaches, a ton of boxing coaches, but there isn't. So, are there high-level wrestlers here? Are there high-level boxers here? There are. But there's a gray area between professional and amateur. And the guys that are really good amateurs, you don't see them at the gyms, man. The Olympic champions.
So, like, if say like a high-level like Division I wrestler wanted to go coach in China, there's a lot of opportunities out there for them.
Oh, for sure. But the problem is here so far, like I said, it's with the people that invest in gyms, what they do is they'll build up a nice gym and they'll make it look really nice. But their number one thing is about, memberships, general classes. So what they'll do is they'll bring in like a BJJ Black Belt, and he'll have to coach everything. You have to coach the regular classes, and then you'll have to coach the pro team and the pro fighters. And, like I went to my guy, Ning, he fought in the UFC in Korea in Seoul. I think that was 2 years ago. And it was awesome because you see, you spend a week with all the different camps, and you see the Koreans. They have a head coach. They have a guy that just holds pads. They have a guy that just does wrestling. Guys that just does grappling. And you see that with the Japanese. You see that with the Koreans. Of course, you see that with the Brazilians and Americans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, that week it was when Masvidal fought Ben Henderson. And I just remember, there's quite a few Koreans on the card. And I just remember they're all together, man. They have 5 coaches, 8 guys fighting. It was awesome. But in China, you don't really have that. You have one BJJ Black Belt and maybe a Muay Thai coach. And that's it, man. So what the UFC is doing actually right now is in anticipation for the Shanghai show, which I think is October something. They flew out like 10 Chinese guys to Jackson Winkle John's gym in New Mexico. And they're there for 6 months just training. And I think instead of doing another Ultimate Fighter, that's what they're going to do now. And they're going to try to give them 6 months training, see who they think at the end can make it. But that's what I mean. I didn't think when I first got here, I thought I was like, there's going to be 5,000 guys that are ready to fight, but that's not true, man. It's not true.
I think everybody thinks that hasn't been to China, and they think that there's a billion people out there. So and martial arts is, rampant everywhere in that country. So they would think like there's dudes out there ready to bang in the streets, like it's everywhere, but
not really. Like I said, the high level coaches, like I know a couple of national team guys in judo and wrestling, and I don't see them often, man. Like they're locked down, not locked down like they can't go outside, but I think what happens when they leave their sport, they end up just teaching at an elementary school. They end up teaching at a junior high. And for them, it's a secure job, so I can see why they do it. But whereas, like, so when I was in America, like I trained at Extreme Couture, I trained these gyms, and it was very common to train alongside NCAA wrestling champions, NCAA All-Americans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But here, not so common. These guys didn't go into MMA. I thought they would. Like I said, really. I remember watching the Beijing Olympics, 2008, right? And I remember thinking like, oh man, like, look at all these gold medalists. They must be, walking down the street everywhere, but not really, man. I just met a silver medalist in judo, a woman. And she's silver medaled in London. And same thing, super nice woman. She came and did a seminar, and just a nice woman, awesome technique. But yeah, like, trying to meet her to train is super hard. She teaches at one of the schools, one of the judo schools, and her time's just really, really busy. So like I said, before I came here, I thought these guys were teaching in gyms or training or doing this, but rarely see them. And I think that's one of the things that holds back the development also. Like I said, so for a sport to build, and I heard this from Dana White from his mouth directly, at the UFC in Macau, he said what China needs is the Yao Ming of MMA. But now that I've been here, what I think is that's not so easy to find, because Yao Ming, he got coaching at a high level. You know what I mean? He got the best coaching, best support. But the MMA guys here don't have that. Because, again, the government doesn't really back MMA. People don't know what it is, which means sponsors don't get involved. You know what I mean? So a lot of these gyms, it's, they don't, like I said, they only have one or two coaches. And some of these coaches, they want, to me, I think of coaches. When I meet these coaches, I say to myself, could this guy coach at Extreme Couture? Could he coach at Black Zillions? Could he teach at American Top Team? And some can, some can't. But the problem is the Chinese fighters have to fight those guys. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they're fighting guys that have 5 legitimate coaches behind them, 20 legitimate training partners behind them. You know what I mean? So
it's almost too much in the States. Some of those camps are just too big.
Yeah, that's true too. When I was at Couture's, man, it was like, it was awesome because, you had, Forrest Griffin was there, Vitor Belfort was there, and, I had a chance to train these guys, and it was great. But on the flip side, like I said, sometimes it's too big. Actually, I think, I'm not saying this, I'm being serious. I saw what the Koreans had, and, I studied these things because, I've been in this for a long time. And I saw what the Koreans had. I think they have the right idea, which is you could tell it was tight-knit, you know what I mean? And I think the coaches, I don't know their names. I met them a couple of times at Road FC and at the UFC. But you could tell they care about the fighters. The fighters trust their coaches, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And these coaches knew what they were talking about. So, that, if you have that, man, then you have some top fighters, man. You have a tough squad. But I think, like in China, like I was with the first Chinese UFC fighter, Titrin, awesome guy. It's on Titrin. And he was awesome. I went with him I was with him when he fought in UFC Macau. He fought John Tuck, who I also know from San Diego. And I thought Titrin had a good chance to win that fight, man. He really is legit. But, his coaching situation was a mess. I was in his corner. It was a freaking disaster, man. And he's fighting John Tuck. I used to train at the same gym with him. And he's going against a guy John Tuck, who I think Titrin's better. Maybe, not better, but, he's a good fighter. It's a good fight. But John Tuck, he's got 5 black belts at his gym. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's got like 3 world champion kickboxers to train with him. And that adds up, man. That adds up.
Oh, definitely. I think, you are who you train with, basically.
Well,
you can't be the king of your gym and become the world champion if you don't have guys that are kings with you. You know what I mean? So, you're definitely – go ahead.
No, that's what I said. That's why I liked, honestly, what I saw I've seen the Korean squad. I've seen them a couple times. Actually, the first time I met the Korean squad was when I was living in Vegas. It was like 7 or 8 years ago, man. Dong-Yeon Kim used to come down. He would.
You're talking about Team Mad.
Team Mad. There you go. Yeah. I could, but he came down, and then that was the first time I met him. But they were awesome guys. You could just tell they're like so into learning more, getting more experience, taking it back to their team in Korea, and sharing it with their teammates. And then I see them now, 7 years later. They got a bunch of guys in the UFC now, right? They have a bunch of guys doing well, and that's how it's got to start. But China, like I said, I don't think they have that yet. Right now, it's more, okay, we're our own team. We have these fighters, but we really need to sell memberships to support the gym. And so we're just going to do it like that. And that's it, man,
I think you got to make a decision is like, do you want to have a gym or do you want to have a fight team? Because I don't think you could have both. It's almost impossible. When I look at a lot of the gyms here, they're not really like the ones that actually have big fight teams. They're not focused on having members. They're just focused on getting their athletes to the highest level and getting championships. And that's what Team Mad has done. They've been around for so long, and their coaching is very good. and they're open-minded. I think that's very key because there's still Korean teams out here that are not open-minded. They stay and they're stuck in their gym, and their gym is not really that big, and they don't have that many coaches. And yeah, and there's still, like you said, in China, there's still teams here that are the same way. And to grow, you have to expand and open yourself up. And yeah, and Team Matt has done that. That's why they have the most UFC fighters. That's why they have the most champions in other, other promotions. And yeah, it's big. I was talking to another guy, and he was telling me about China, and like there's so many towns with like a small town in China or a small city is like 3 million people, right? So so if you go to a small town or a small city and you fight there and they have an event, usually it's nothing to get like 3,000, 5,000 people to show up to the fights. And they pay the fighters pretty well. Like you said, like they're not educated, but there's money because there's nothing to do. That's what that guy was saying in those cities. So when you have an event, they just come and watch.
Well, what happens is, like I said, there's so many towns and provinces in China, obviously, and like I said, there's wealthy people everywhere, and they like fighting sports. Like I said, they like K1 rules. They like you might have just seen some wealthy Chinese guy. He paid Bull to come fight with them. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, that $1 million thing, wasn't that?
Yeah, he paid the guy. He paid Bull. This guy, this wealthy guy, like, he paid Bull to come fight him, man. And that's what I mean. They have that kind of money around here, man. And it's everywhere, man. It's not just in Beijing or Shanghai. Like, these, and that's why we're all here. When I say we, I'm talking about foreigners. I'm a foreigner here too. And we're all here because, I personally, I love spreading jiu-jitsu. I taught jiu-jitsu in Thailand, India, Taiwan, China, America, obviously. So, I feel like part of my life mission is one of the things I really enjoy, at least, not a life mission, but I love teaching jiu-jitsu and sharing with new people. And so that's what brought me out here. That's what kept me here. What brought me out here was the fighting rough, but what kept me here was that. And, you see all these people with money, they like it. They know who these guys are. These wealthy guys, they follow Muay Thai. They follow, MMA a little bit. But, like I said, it's just finding that Dana White, not the promoter Dana White, but find that guy that can get it accepted. You know what I mean? I think that's going to be the key. And Dana White was smart in other ways. Like I said, a lot of people, they try to do the Ultimate Fighter, all this, but he was the first one. You know what I mean? He was the first one. And again, acceptance. If you hear his interviews about how hard it was to even get the first Ultimate Fighter going, he had a hard time, man. They had to pay for it all, right? Now it's a gold mine, but back then nobody wanted it. You know what I mean? So, people now see, Dana White with 3 Ferraris, all that. But I remember the times when, like I said, man, like the fighters was using the UFC as a springboard to Japan. So getting the UFC accepted in America was an uphill battle. So of course it's gonna be an uphill battle here. Of course.
Oh, definitely.
But
hey, I wanted to ask you about that thing that recently happened, like about a month ago, about the Tai Chi guy.
I knew you were gonna ask me that.
Because you're the one to ask, man. If I ask anybody, so
my internet might get cut off by the government officials right now. So if I say anything too extreme, I'll tell you this. I'm not kidding around with this.
Who was the guy though? Tell me about the guy, the MMA fighter. Who is that guy?
Yeah. So don't say MMA fighter, please. All right?
Okay.
Say the guy that has the MMA gym.
Okay.
So he's not a bad guy. I know him. His story is like 10 years ago. There's another Andy. All right, another guy named Andy came out here a long time ago, like over 10 years ago, and he was the first guy to teach, like kind of promote BJJ here. He's the guy that started Art of War, actually. But 10, 15 years ago, there was no Art of War. Andy was out here teaching BJJ, and this guy, the other guy, Shriel Dong, I think he's like a Sanda guy. He's got decent skills, actually. He's got, but he's never fought pro. He's nothing like that. But anyway, Shriel Dong's like, hey man, I think this BJJ stuff's crap. So they fought like a challenge match, and Andy beat him. And Andy, he's not a fighter, I don't think he's ever even, he's just a guy that did BJJ. But back then, 15 years ago, that was enough. You know what I mean? So fast forward, Shriel Dong, like he took over a club. It's called Battle Club. It's in Beijing, popular club, but they have like smoker events there, and they just have a lot of things going there. So Shriel Dong, he's a young guy and he's very excitable. So what I mean by that is, one of his coaches, not too long ago, maybe a year or two ago, they got in an argument on the subway with some guy. And the coach was like, let's not fight here. Let's go to the gym and let's go fight. They had a full, like It was all over the social media. It was crazy, man, because you're watching a coach beat down some guy. And what we all said was, that's Sherelle Don't. You know, Sherelle Don't, like most gym owners are like, no, you can't do that, right? What if the guy gets seriously hurt? What if we get sued? But Sherelle Don't, he don't care, man. You know what I mean? So he puts on these events, smokers and all this. But I've heard a lot of things since then regarding that. Some people say that actually he knows the guy. It was like a fixed fight. Some people say it was a real fight. What I can tell you is that within, I would say a year ago, Sherelle Don't used to be pretty quiet. Not too crazy on social media. But then about a year ago, he started just getting really just started calling people out on social media. So the big social media here is WeChat. Everybody uses WeChat. And he just started on WeChat saying a bunch of stuff, yelling at people, just making open challenges. And what I heard was he picked up a sponsor, and the sponsor was encouraging him to, you know, be the Conor McGregor of China, I guess, you know. Just but man, it worked. It worked. I gotta say, it worked. Because you know why? I'll tell you this. Because now I think he just came out with a book on MMA. You know, I just saw a picture of it. But he had a lot of blowback. And I'll tell you why. Because I know people from sports. They told me that government people called them to tell Sherelle Don't to chill out. And Sherelle Dont's been really quiet, you know, for a while. So, you know, I kind of have the feeling actually that, you know, like I think this all along it might have been a publicity stunt from his sponsor, and they took it, and it worked, man. I'm telling you, it worked. Because people have asked me, you know, they're like normal people that just come to gym for classes. They're like, hey, man, you know, where's Sherelle Don't rank amongst pro Chinese fighters? I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Like, he's never fought pro, you know. But you know, the marketing worked. You know what I mean? The marketing worked. But it was a big. Everybody here was talking about it for a while. Everybody was talking about it. They still do talk about it. You know, I still get questions about it.
What is he doing now?
He went underground, man. Like I said, his gym's not far from mine, man. And like, what he's doing now is promoting fights. He's promoting small MMA events, I think. But he got real quiet, like super quiet. Like he just dropped off. So the Facebook here is called Weibo. The government shut down his Weibo. You know, like he was getting a little bit too popular, I guess.
Oh,
and they shut it down. And then on WeChat, which is, you know, WeChat's like the Twitter here. Like he just went silent, man. He went silent.
Yeah, because I saw. Do you think the media, like abroad, were you looking at some of the media that was happening abroad? They were.
Times picked it up.
Yeah. Like even Vice did a little documentary on him, and they went to China and interviewed him at his gym and everything. So a lot of that is just bullshit then, you know, according to some people.
It's hard to say, man. Like I said, I haven't seen him for a while, but you know, he's a wild guy, and I think he's an entertainer at heart. And I think when he met the sponsor, I think there's something they probably conjured up. I think maybe the fight was real or not. I have no idea. I only watched a couple times, but I think, you know, like everywhere, you know, even at Rebel, I see guys try to act like Conor McGregor now. You see it everywhere, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And it works, right? You call people out, you say a bunch of bad words, you beat people up, whatever, and, you know, it's noticeable. But, you know, for me, like, I stay away from that stuff, man. You know, like, Sherelle Don't, like, I have nothing against them, you know. All these guys, I have nothing against them, you know, but I got in this thing for a different reason, man. And we all need money. We all need, you know, obviously there's something to be said about marketing, but, you know, I purely got into BJJ MMA over 20 years ago. Wrestling, you know, I started with high school wrestling. I purely got in this for self-defense, man. And that's why I'm doing this event, you know. I know we're going to talk about Rebel a little bit, but why I'm doing this now, why after the layoff, why am I entering a 4-man tournament? You know, it's for self-defense, you know what I mean? Like, I really want to see Saturday night, like, you know, you got 4 guys, 1 Brazilian who's a tough grappler, black belt, and jiu-jitsu. You got American from Extreme Couture who used to train there. You know, the guy I'm fighting, Maeda, you know, all his wins come by knockout, you know what I mean? You know, so for me, like, you know, like this is the guts for me of why I started watching UFC 1 and I never stopped, you know what I mean? Because I'm fascinated with self-defense. I'm fascinated with, you know, if a person is able to really do, you know, like, you know, fight, you know, able to defend himself, man. And so, you know, for me, you know, this is probably my last event, I think. You know, and actually going backwards, so this is what I say. So why I'm even doing a 4-man tournament. 17 years ago, actually, when I made my pro debut, I fought a 4-man tournament. You know, back then, again, you know, MMA was very underground then. This was 1999, 2000. I was a student at the University of Hawaii. So I was just doing jiu-jitsu back then. I loved jiu-jitsu, but jiu-jitsu, it was a fringe sport. There was only one tournament a year. It wasn't much, but I loved it. I trained it. And then one of my coaches, Barry Yoshida, he went to Japan and he stayed in Japan for a few months. And he came back and he was training with Runa Sato, Hayato Sakurai, the Shudo legends. He came back. He goes, Andy, man, we got to give this MMA thing a try. The Shudo, he was really fascinated with Shudo. And I was like, I still wasn't sure, man. I was like, I don't know, man. I was like, man, I went to college for a reason. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, I want to get a good job, man. Just that. But then I started thinking about, why I even got into BJJ, why I even got into UFC, watching UFC was, man, like, like you too, I'm sure, man. When we first saw, Royce Gracie taking on, 3 fights in one night, 4 fights in one night, no weight limit, fighting guys. And back then, you got to remember what people don't realize now, back then, there was no YouTube, no nothing, man. If you were fighting a guy, you were fighting a guy. You had no idea, you had no idea what his background was. You don't know what he looked like, you know what I mean? So, actually there's so my first event actually is I trained. He came back and said, hey man, we should do it. And in Hawaii, actually, coincidentally enough, Hawaii was a hotbed for MMA. So there's an event called Super Brawl, which had partnered up with Shudo. And so a lot of those top Japanese guys were coming to Hawaii fight. Actually, a lot of the top, and this is what I mean, the UFC was in such a bad state then. Like Matt Hughes, Tim Sylvia, all those guys were fighting in Super Brawl, man. The UFC was nothing then. I can't say enough, man. The UFC was really like, it isn't what it is now. You know what I mean? So that's why when I say give Dana White, his respect, his dues, because I remember when Matt Hughes, Tim Sylvia, Rico Rodriguez was fighting in Super Bowl in an old stadium. Nobody came to watch. You know what I mean? Like, it was crazy, man. It's crazy to think about it now because of what the UFC became. But anyways, so finally, my coach first fought. He fought in Super Bowl in Guam. He did good. He goes, Andy, we just got to go with this, man. We got to keep doing it. So we started training MMA. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. Luckily we had Egan Inoue as the coach. He was already fighting back then. But, this was 20 years ago, man. So, everything was kind of crazy. But anyway, so my first event was a 4-man tournament. It was at 84 kilos, and I'm not an 84 kilo guy.
Yeah.
Back then, fights, like I said, it wasn't like what it is now, man. Back then, if you had a chance to fight, you just had to do it. And anyways, I won't say too much about it, but I won the first fight and I lost the second fight. But this was my pro debut. And 17 years ago till now, fast forward now, that challenge of fighting twice in one night is still with me, man. I was just a kid then. I was just a college student. But that has stayed with me. And so I had pretty much thought I was done, to be honest, because I was thinking like I said, I'm teaching BJJ full time. I got a good situation here, and I love what I do, man. I'm teaching BJJ and I'm sharing it in China. But when this opportunity came up, they're like, "Hey, man, there's a chance to get back in it." And then they were telling me they're gonna have this Grand Prix and all this. I was like, for me, I don't know what's gonna happen Saturday. I don't, a Grand Prix, anything can happen. I've trained as hard as I can. I've done everything I can. But for me, like in a weird way, I want to feel what I felt 17 years ago. I want to feel it one more time, which was, I actually haven't watched one fight of my opponent. I can't find any of the videos fighting. The promoter hasn't sent me any. And I'm not saying I'm Royce Gracie. I'm not saying I'm these guys, but it links me back to why I even got in this thing, man. I thought it was such a cool thing that, guys would go in the cage, fight a guy that they didn't know, and, you're going to fight all out in one night. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's almost like you're ending your career the way you started your career. So you're going out the same door you went in. Rarely anybody could say that in their career.
17 years, brother. 17 years, man. And, and a big reason, too, is, my last fight at ONE FC was a disaster, it was just disaster. My opponent, he was better than me anyways. He would have beat me anyways. But, I had a really good training camp in Las Vegas. I flew out to Singapore. And then, during the weight cut, I passed out, actually. I woke up on the bathroom floor. I still had to try to make weight, so I jumped on the treadmill. And, just from that point on, it was just all disaster. And then during the fight, some things happened. I got poked in the eyes a couple of times. And it was just the whole experience. Everybody has wins and losses, right? Everybody has wins and losses. But the way that fight went from the weight cut on down, everything, it was such a bad experience. I was like, I can't end my career like that, because I've had so many good coaches. I had Barry Yoshida, I had the Machado brothers, I had Helson Gracie, I had Ian Inoue. And I
Legends.
just feel like, yeah, man, I just feel like, like I can't let my MMA career end that way. In my earlier days, John, like everybody else, when I was in the UFC, I was like, man, I wanted to be the champion. I want to make a lot of money. I want to be world famous. But like what you just said, man, 17 years ago, I was just a kid. I did the 4-man tournament because I wanted to see if I could defend myself. 17 years later, I'm 40 years old now, man. And it's just right back to what it is. I'm solely purely doing this to honor my coaches, really. Because, like, I don't want people to see my last fight with ONE FC and be like, well, what was that? I want whatever happens Saturday night, like, I just want to get carried out, honestly, man. If I win, lose, or draw, just carry me out, man. That is the training and the discipline and, the things that I learned from my coaches. And so that's why I try to do everything right for this fight. The way I train, the way I eat, the way I sleep, I try to do everything right the way they taught me. You know what I mean? And so I'm hoping, I'm hoping I get good results. But the fight game.
Yeah, anything can happen.
So I believe in myself. I believe in my training. I believe I've done everything I can. Saturday night we'll see how it all shakes out. But I'm going there to win, bro. I'm going there to win. But whatever happens, if I get carried out, then I'll be happy, man. I'll have reached my goal. You know what I mean? And that was my goal 17 years ago, man. 17 years ago, it's crazy because I've been training for this for the last couple of months, and it's like it's amazing how fast 17 years goes by. All the places I've been, all the things that happen in between. But I get that same feeling, which is like, oh man, man, it's a Grand Prix. Oh man, like what's this guy gonna do? How's this fight gonna be? How's this guy? And like I said, it just links me back to that fascination I had when I was in high school, 1994. I saw the first UFC, man. That fascination. As soon as I saw it, I was so fascinated, man. Like I was like, I can't believe these guys are doing this. There's these guys. They're gonna run in a cage and they're gonna beat each other up. And they'll fight 3 or 4 times in one night. Like I thought it was the most amazing thing.
Yeah, I think anybody that's that age, like when you're young, because I think I was in middle school at that time, and when I saw I think UFC 2, and then you see that those guys go in there with nothing on except for their clothes, and then just go at it, and teeth is flying everywhere, and the smallest dude goes in there and just takes everybody out. So it's just amazing.
And that's I think for our generation, you and me, all the guys that still follow MMA or BJJ. We got into it because of what we saw, what I mean, on those videotapes. And like I said, for me, I feel lucky, man. I'm grateful. I went to, I'm grateful that I had the chance to experience it 17 years ago. I have a chance to experience it again this Saturday. And that's what I mean, man. The nervousness, the fear, the anxiety, you feel that in one fight, let alone in a Grand Prix. You know what I'm saying? So just multiply it. But in some ways, I hate to say it, man, because that's what, I don't think it's a good idea when you're older to go back to something that's meant for young men, such as boxing and MMA. But in some ways, like, I feel like, man, this whole training camp is just like, I kept thinking of what Egan taught me back then, what Barrett taught me back then, all the things they had to do to help me get ready to do that thing at that age. And how much harder it was this time at 40 years old to have to do those things again. You know what I mean? So it was challenging in the same way, but 17 years apart is what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Well, you're part of the old school, like it's the truth, like the old school, they're used to going in there fighting more than once in a night. Like if you ask the newer guys nowadays, they will never fight in a night tournament ever.
They won't do it.
They let alone fight a dude that they don't know who they are.
Yeah. But like I said, for me, man, even I for how should I say this? Like I do, I tell my students this, don't, in China, I say, don't train with me because I'm a black belt jiu-jitsu, you know what I mean? Like black belt's cool, but it's not the most important thing. I'm going to train with me because I've entered wrestling competitions. I've entered judo competitions. I've entered MMA competitions. I fought in a Mongolian wrestling tournament. That was scary, man. I fought in a Mongolian wrestling tournament. This is true. It's called Boka. They told me it was like a charity event. Like it was going to be just for fun, right? I find out like the week before, 2 weeks before, it's $1 million RMB like prize, which is about 160,000 US.
Damn.
160,000 US to some Mongolian like wrestling dude that lives on a farm in Mongolia. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to me. So I show up. It's open weight, like 100 guys. And it's incredible. But the point being is, yeah, that's why I tell people. I say, hey, man, and that's the second thing. I say, train with me because I do all these things, and I want to find out what I think is a truth for me in martial arts and self-defense. Because self-defense to me is martial arts. And secondly, a lot of you guys will never meet my coaches. You'll never meet Egan. You'll never meet Barrett because they're in America. And you're here in China. But based on the decisions, the way I train, the way I compete, the fights I go to, you can tell what kind of coaches I had. And that's why it's important I do this, man. And I don't, like everybody has their own idea of why they do martial arts. But for me, I went to Joe terms. I got beat. I got pinned. I went to Boca. I got lost our first round, I did MMA. I got knocked out before. But I've also won. I've also learned. It's also helped me, like I said, become, it's just like I said, it's helped me become the coach I am today. And I tell my students that, like I said, don't train me because I have some belt or I have some certificate on the wall. Train me because, thank God, I had these coaches since I was a kid, 7 years old, 8 years old, in different sports, who always encouraged me, to grow. Don't think about wins and losses. Grow, man. Take on the right challenges. Fight the people who're supposed to be fighting, and if you go do it right. So that's why I'm making this comeback, man. And it might be just one night. And in some ways, I'm hoping it's just one night because I'm 4 years old now. This is, it's time, man. 17 years has passed, man. It's time. But I hope for at least on this Saturday night, like I said, if I get carried out, man, then I reach my objective. Like
it's
I said,
almost,
I mean that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like there's no better way. There's no better way.
Because I'll tell you what, 17 years ago, man, I was 22, 23 years old at the time. I was a young man. I was strong. I was this and that. I won that first fight, and I remember going back out for that second fight. It was intense, John, man. And there's internet warriors there. They say you lost in the UFC, you lost in one FC, but you know what? Always, I'll always remember I did something that very, very few men could do. I was a kid fighting men.
Yeah.
And I fought two of them in one night. You know what I mean? And nobody can take that away from me. And that's why I got into this, man. Let's face the facts. For me now, I can realize I just didn't have 17 years later. Okay, I was in the UFC. I was in all these things. I fought at ADCC. I fought all these events. I did as much as I could, but what I realized now was my athletic ability just wasn't at the elite level. You know what I mean? Because along that time, you got to remember, I was in a lot of camps. I trained with Frank Trigg when he was getting ready to fight Matt Hughes. I trained all these different guys, man. I was there. And I realized now, before I thought it was oh, maybe my jab isn't good enough or my double leg isn't good enough. But I realized now, I was hey, man, this is just how it is, man. Some guys, they have the athletic ability to compete at that elite level. Some people don't. I made it to the elite level, but I couldn't win at the elite level. And I tried everything I could. I trained with the best coaches. There are no excuses. The only excuse I have was I just didn't have the athletic ability to play in the major leagues. You know what I mean? I could get there, but I couldn't stay there.
Well, there's a lot of guys like that, but they make it further than they ever would have dreamed of making it.
Yeah.
And
bro,
it's just amazing that there's so many stories out there like that. And that's inspirational. Exactly. And like you said, with your gym and your jiu-jitsu and your teachings, that you could teach somebody, hey, you might not think that you could go this far, but exactly. I'm a person that went everywhere and did everything basically, and you can do it too. And that's inspirational, man, for real.
Because, a lot of fighters, what I can tell you now, I won't say any names, but, like I said, I've been in this thing 20 years now, fighting pro 17 years, BJJ, MMA, all this stuff. And what I can tell you, man, is the ups and downs of being a fighter is so extreme. The depression, the happiness, and, I was teammates with War Machine, his story now. I've been around a lot of good, a lot of bad, a lot in between. And what I say is, and that's what I expect on my students. What I tell my BJJ students is hey, man, for these guys to get in the cage, you don't have the right to boo them, man. You don't have the right to get on the internet and talk trash about them because you don't know how hard it is to train 3 months for one moment in your life, get in that cage, knowing that your opponent can full well beat you, you could beat him. I mean, it's incredible, And so, you hear about even not just MMA, of course, but NFL. You hear a lot about brain problems now, depression, all these things that are going on. And I think my personal opinion, a lot of it has to do with the pressures that athletes have at that level, at that elite level, where every performance can make or break your career. Your family's depending on you. People are depending on you, right? Like, hey, man, you know, like, so we don't have the right, you know, we don't have the right to say, you know, oh, well, you know, whatever, Daniel Cormier, he cried after John Jones beat him. Like, you don't know what this fight meant to him. You know what I mean? You don't have the right, man. That's what I'm saying, man. So for me, like, I never became a champion. I never became a millionaire from MMA. But one thing nobody can ever take from me is, you know, I fought in one Grand Prix, and Saturday I'm gonna fight another, man. And I know just based on that, I know, you know, how I feel about myself, the respect I give myself. It's not about what other people think about me, it's how I feel about myself. Because you know what? If you would have told me that in high school when I first saw the UFC, no way, man. You know, I'd be like, no way would I ever do that. Fight one, let alone 2 fights in one night, no way, man.
Hey,
So, you know,
I think that you have so many stories of being with so many people. You need to start telling those stories, some of those stories. I think people will be, you know, waiting for those stories to come out because you've been around so many, I guess, famous and notorious and, you know, champs and people, and you know how fans, they want to hear about those things, especially, you know, fans that start watching the sport when we've started watching the sport, you know, back in the day. So
bro,
that'll be cool.
Yeah, you know, for me, like I said, a lot of these guys were people I trained with. You know, fortunately for me, I trained at the hotbed of you know, BJJ MMA. I was in LA, San Diego. My hometown is Torrance. Torrance is the birthplace of BJJ in America, you know?
Yeah.
So a lot of these things just fell in place, man. I went to University of Hawaii, where Helson Gracie, second oldest son of Elo Gracie, he had a gym, you know, 1 mile down the street from campus. You know what I mean? So, you know, back then people were flying all over the world to try to find a place to train, and I was down the street from these places.
Every time.
Every time. So it fell in place, man. But, you know, like I said, you know, I just want to say that's actually the point I want to make. You know, the fact that I'm even doing another Grand Prix 17 years later, to me, it's a testament to the power of not me, but it's the power of really martial arts and having a purpose in your life and improving yourself, and not, you know, like I said, you know, I made shirts for this event. I make shirts for all my events, you know, and for this event, I put one thing on the back, which is, you know, champions, they have no regrets. They only have victories and losses. And that's how I feel, bro. You know, like I said, I'm not undefeated. I tell my students straight, I say, I'm not undefeated. I'm not a world champion, anything. Like, you know, like I said, I made it to that level. I made it to ADCC. You know, I made it to the UFC. You know, but I couldn't stay there. But I know what it takes. You know what I mean? I know the hard work it takes. I know all that. But more importantly, those were the best times of my life, John, because it was like every day going to the gym, meeting these people that you're just talking about. You know, I was there with Frank Trigg. I was there with these guys when they were chasing the belt. And, you know, just being there with these guys and seeing how much work and how much emotion and how much love they pour into it. You know what I mean? Those are things that stay with me forever. And now that I have a chance to do it, you know, like I said, that's what I mean. A big part of why I'm doing this now is it's a testament to my coaches, my training partners, like, you know, the work and things they put into me, the hard work they put in me. Like, I want them to show, you know, hey, man, this is what I'm passing on my students too. You know, we're not these guys taking fake fights. We're not these guys, you know, fighting guys.
Because that's going on a lot in China, right?
Everywhere, bro. Everywhere, man. Yeah, in China, it's, you know, in China it's more because, you know, obviously, like I said, it's there's been some, you know, like even with Cheryl Doan's situation, like, what was the chance of him
possibly could happen?
That? Yeah, what was the chance of losing that? And I'm not criticizing him. He did what he's, you know, he's blown up because of it. But for me, I would never do that. I would never challenge no Tai Chi guy, say, hey, you know, come to my gym, let's see who's gonna win. Like, nah, man. That's my coaches from time I was 7 until now. Like, they've always only encouraged me to go fight these guys, because not fight, but to compete. The point of competition is to make ourselves better, right? And that's it. And if you're not making yourself better, like, you know, if you're not improving yourself, then, you know, what's the point? So that's what I'm trying to say. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. How was I didn't mean to cut you off, but how was the promotion leading up to this event? Because I know you guys been promoting it for a few months now, right?
Yeah, it's going good. Because like I said, Rebel, they had shows before. I worked with them before. They were doing a reality TV show a couple years ago. And then they had some events in Qingdao. I went over there to help as a staff member. So, you know, Rebels put on, you know, like they put on a couple events here. They, like I said, I don't know all the story. Like this time I just been focused on training. But I think it's going well. So I just talked to the promoter actually just now. They're using a smaller venue this time, about 1,500 seats. It's at a really nice hotel called the Kerry Center. And so apparently it's pretty packed. I think it's sold out. I think that's the way to go. So I think because right now, in absence of being a lot of Chinese stars, in the absence of a lot of local acceptance of what MMA is, I think start small, man. Start small, build up the local talent, build up the stars, and go from there.
For sure.
But yeah. So for me, like I said, what I like about what Rebel's doing from the events I went to before this one, they bring a lot of international talent. The guy that they have fighting for the 145-pound featherweight championship, Rodolfo Marquez, he's awesome, man. Fought Dream, fought all the top guys. He's a Brazilian guy living in Australia. He's fighting a top Japanese guy for the belt. You know what I mean? So I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, every promotion, every promoter, they have their own ideas. But what I respect about Rebel, what I respect about Ruff, what I respect about, ONE FC, Road, they do bring in these international fighters. I think we need more of that.
Oh, yeah. If you want to be competing at the highest level of promotions around the world, you have to have international flavor in your events, or you can't test your country's fighters, because you're just fighting each other and killing each other off. So that's not good, So yeah, that's cool that Rebel's doing that. And the tournament is 4 guys from 4 different countries battling it out in one night. And who doesn't love a battle in one night? Like, everybody loves that shit.
I'll tell you if I love it after Saturday night, man.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I love it right
another thing that I wanted to ask you about is that, you're deep into BJJ. You're a great grappler. You grappled everywhere around the world, in many tournaments. But when you fight, it seems like something clicks in your mind that you want to just take the dude out. Like, you're not going for the submission. You're going to take the dude out. So what can you tell me, like, what happens, like, when you go into the cage and your mindset, and how it maybe switches to some like almost like a killer instinct in yourself?
Well, you know what I'll say? I'll say what's hindered, because I can speak now freely because I'm 40 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I'm not in the chase for the belt anymore. I'm not in the chase for any stuff. So I've had the chance the last couple of years, now that I'm developing my own students, and I've reached that age where, like, I'm older. I can look back on the things I did right and wrong. And all I'm going to say is this, I don't want to say too much before the fight, because I just want to focus on doing what I got to do for the fight. But what I'll tell for anybody that's watching this, anybody that's, at home watching, think about fighting or, whatever, like, composure is the most important thing, man, in sports. You might have, a bunch of tools. You might be a great athlete. You might have the best train camp. But if you don't have composure, man, then it's not going to happen. And so for me, earlier in my career, and even as a, there's a saying that my coach uses, Barry Yoshida. He says, how you do anything is how you do everything. And really, it's only been with the last couple of years, John, I've been able to reflect on my life. I used to be a high school teacher. Now I'm a BJJ teacher, all this. I've done a lot of things. I've met a lot of people. And my lack of composure in the ring, it was the same way how I dealt with certain things in my personal life, my professional life. And now that I'm older, what I'm hoping for is I finally learned that composure. You know what I mean? So now I'm 40, and I hope if it gets to that point Saturday night that I need to stay composed, that I can do it. Because I believe I have the skills, man. I believe I have the tools. Like I said, I've trained, I've fought, I've done all this stuff. But what's held me back my career is composure. You know what I mean? Going against doing what I knew was right because I was upset or because I was emotional. But that's the hard part about competing. That's why I say, going back, like, what people don't see is fighters lose emotion before and during fights all the time. But the good fighters are the ones that can recapture it. This is a true story, actually. I just saw this not too long ago, and I believe it. I never asked anybody personally about it from that side. But I saw an article by Todd Hester, who was a reputable MMA journalist from the UFC 1 days. And he said recently, I think it was in John McCarthy's book, actually. He wrote a really good book about the early days of UFC. But what he said was before UFC 1, they saw Royce. He saw that guy Hester. He saw Royce Gracie. He broke down in Hickson's arms, man, before the event. He was crying, saying he couldn't do it. He didn't want it, whatever. And I can relate to that because I think all fighters can relate to that because I've broken down after my fights, which is public. People seen that part. But, Royce Gracie, that's what makes him a legend. That's why he became a champion and all the things that come along with it. Because, okay, he had his breakdown. He lost his composure. But the next night of the fights, you couldn't tell, right? We couldn't tell. And so, he did what he had to do. He won. And that's the key thing I'm after here. Like, we all get tested as athletes, as fathers, as husbands, as whatever, as business people. And the ones that can keep their composure, those are the ones that end up rising to the top. So I spent my whole life, literally my whole life, bro. I've spent my whole life honing my tools, my skills, and I'm proud of my tools, my skills. Because like you said earlier, I've taken it further than I ever thought I could. Fighting ADCC. I was a white belt when ADCC came out. 1997 it was. It was a pipe dream, bro. And when ADCC, when I got invited to ADCC, I remember being in the warm room. I fought in the World Championship 2013. The warm-up room, man, it was all legends, bro. And I was like, I remember a white belt thinking like, well, shit, that's cool for, but it's only reserved for the elite black belts. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying I'm elite, but man, I made it to that part. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was amazing, man. And I'm not one of those guys like I said, I don't believe in like the power of dreams. I don't say those things. But what I say the power of is, thank God that I had good coaches in my life. They led me down the right way. Thank God I found martial arts that gave me this ability to, to go after it. You know what I mean? And that's the best feeling in the world, man. People will say what they want to say. Like said, it's, if I go out there Saturday night and get knocked out in 9 seconds, people don't laugh at me. They're not gonna like look at DC, guy ain't never lost to nobody. Only to John Jones. Everybody's laughing at him now because he cried, but man, they don't see like, he admitted himself he used to get bullied as a kid. That's why he went to wrestling. Like he made it to the Olympics. I'm sure, I hope at least someplace, DC right now is, like he's looking back at his life and like, of course there's extreme downs, but look at all the extreme highs he had.
Yeah.
That only happened because he was willing to face his fears. You know what I mean?
For
So
sure.
that's the beauty of wrestling. That's the beauty of boxing. That's the beauty of jiu-jitsu. That's the beauty of tennis, whatever. If
Competition.
You're willing to do it. Yeah, if you're willing to do it, man. If you're willing to go out there. So, for me, that's what I'm saying, man. It's like, looking back on now, to answer your question, looking back on now, like I really did believe, John, that, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I really did believe, like, I had the skills and the ability to make it into the mix to be a contender, to be a household name. That's what I wanted. That's what everybody wants, right?
But everybody needs that mind state if you're going to compete, right?
Yeah, you got to have that. But what I didn't have at that time, I didn't have firm composure. You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't have it. And so, and again, that's something that, I recommend to all my students now. I recommend to all the people that are watching this, like, don't just focus on being big, strong, and fast. That's important too. But also focus on the mental, the composure. Because there's going to be bad things that happen in the cage. There's going to be bad things that happen in the ring. Bad things happen all the time. But the ones that can stay composed, like Royce Gracie did before UFC 1, all these things, like, that's the only way that you're going to make it through. And, Saturday night's going to be really hard. And I already know it. Whether I win the first fight, whether I win the second fight, whatever happens, it's going to be really hard. Well, because just training for a 4-man tournament is hard. You know what I mean? That's very hard.
Well, whenever like a former UFC fighter or a fighter with a name that has been competing around the world that fights in China, the world is watching because whenever something happens, you see it on the sites. You see it on like MMA Mania. You see it on like all these big sites. Something, if it's good or bad. Yeah. So whatever you do, you're going to get credit for what you do because it's going to come out. You know what I mean? But going back to China, right? Like you've been living there for so many years now. And when I met you in Seoul for the first time, when you came for the UFC, you told me some things about the struggles of living in China. Can you explain that stuff?
I don't know if I can say it, man. My students might watch it. And okay. This is what Andy really thinks about us. But I'll say the struggles, the main struggle, like I said, it's, I can only say, how should I say this? China's like, I feel like it's stuck between a couple worlds. On one side, it's very wealthy. There's more Ferraris, Lamborghinis here. And I lived in Las Vegas. I live in these fast-paced places, Los Angeles, Beverly Hills. I've been all these places. I've never seen so many Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and they're all driven by 25-year-old kids. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the wealth is there. You see all this, like you see all these high rises. You see the standard of living is very high, but then you see extreme. Like I said, it's tough to watch because I'm very big on respect. For me, again, I'm a martial artist. I used to be a high school teacher. I'm very big. I've always. I can actually say one of the big reasons I got into this was because I don't like bullies. I don't like bullying. I don't like people taking advantage of others. Again, it goes back to why I'm even doing this tournament.
Mm.
I'm doing this tournament because there's a good chance I can win. There's a good chance I can lose. You know what I mean? But what I see here a lot is because of money or because of family connections or because of this, there's a lot of bullying. And you see it everywhere, man. So that's what makes it tough for me to be here. You know, I see good people. They're trying to make their way. But, you know, over here, you see a lot of that, man. You see people get pushed around. You see people who are a little bit bigger than other people. They, you know, how they treat other people on the subway, how they treat people at restaurants, and whatever. It's a little bit tiring, man. I would say that. But on the other side, you know, since I've been here, I've met some beautiful Chinese people, man. You know, like, well, you know, my mom was born here. My dad was born here. You know, they went to Taiwan when they were really young, and then from Taiwan they went to America.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I remember them telling me stories, but their memory recollection of China is very little too, because they left when they were babies, pretty much, or were really young. So coming back here, seeing the stuff, you know, what I mean, like I wanted to have a feeling of what it was like for my grandparents, what it was like for my parents when they were kids. And so, you know, some of it's been great, man. Like I say, sometimes you see the greatest generosity, sometimes you see the greatest stuff. I guess what I'm trying to say is I wish I would have came here, I don't know, 100 years ago, I guess, before all the wealth, before all the high rises, you know, because I think now you only see traces of the traditional Chinese society. You know what I mean? Whereas now it's more about everybody's trying to make money because it's accessible now. You know what I mean?
It's capitalist. It
Yeah,
becomes
it's capitalist. Everybody can
total
get in on it
capitalism.
now. Yeah, so you know, I have a ton of stories about good and bad stories about what's happening to my colleagues, some of my friends. They're going through it right now, man. They're going through it right now. It's you know, almost monthly. I would say I'll get messages from other coaches, other business people, where they have to leave the country or they got ripped off, they got shut out from their own business. Like it's really rough, man, in that sense. But on the other side, like I said, man, you know, I'm here for a reason. I've been here 5 years. If I didn't have good students, if I didn't meet good people, I wouldn't be here. You know what I mean? So I have met lots of good people. But I'll say that you got to be careful, man. You know, when I came out here, I thought it was gonna be like, you know, money and all that was everywhere. People were just waiting to stuff money in your pockets. Not that way, man. Well, if anything, they're waiting to pull the money out of your pockets.
Well, if we go to Beijing, so where can we take a class with you?
So I'm at CTC Capital Training Center. That's right in downtown Beijing, actually central Beijing. So for anybody that's interested in training jiu-jitsu, can come out, look up CTC Capital Training Center. We have 3 black belts there. Actually, one of them just fought Leandro. He's from Novi União. Excellent black belt, 4-time world champion. He just fought at ONE FC Saturday night. He won. So, you know, he teaches. I'm there. And we have another guy named Sergio. So we have 3 black belts on staff. What we're trying to do actually here is, it's a new project. What we're trying to do is bring a full-time BJJ program to China. Meaning that, because I do feel there's 2 distinct kinds of BJJ. One is traditional, which is self-defense oriented. And one is sport, which is the modern jiu-jitsu, right? You know, the sport being, the modern jiu-jitsu being the ones you use for competition against other guys that know jiu-jitsu or wrestling, whatever.
Like Berimbolo?
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, so I'm more of actually, like I said, same thing. I got into this thing, you know, for self-defense. So I really enjoy teaching the traditional aspect. Like,
yeah, me too. I love the traditional style where you're sparring, you're not doing all that spinning shit on the ground. And yeah, I think that is more realistic for kids, women. Kids should not, if you're going to jiu-jitsu, you should be learning to, like you said, self-defense. You should be learning. That's the reason for martial arts, right? You're not going there to compete for a tournament unless that's your purpose.
Yeah.
Then you change to something else.
Yeah, I think, you know, everybody, whatever keeps you in jiu-jitsu is fine, but we can't forget the roots. You know, another notable guy I trained with back in Los Angeles was Valiji Ismail. And Valiji Ismail, he took part in those, you know, those BJJ versus Vale Tudo fights, you know, 20, 30 years ago, man. And, you know, these guys, Renzo Gracie, Valiji Ismail, Fabio Gergel, these guys, they bled for BJJ, man. You know, Hickson, he was fighting Hugo Duarte on the beach. You know what I'm saying? Like, and whatever your goal is in BJJ, it's fine. I think because it's a great lifestyle, it's a great sport, it's all this. But, you know, we can't let those guys fought those fights for nothing. You know what I mean? So, you know, if BJJ would have lost against Lutte Livre back then, who knows where BJJ would be now? Maybe it wouldn't be existed. Maybe we wouldn't even know about it. You know what I mean? So, you know, for me, I teach all my students, my white belts, I teach them all self-defense oriented first because, one, I believe in self-defense. Same thing as you. I believe in the basics. I'm not a fancy guy. The way I dress, the way I live my life, I'm not fancy. I don't like to do bare bowls, all that. But I think it's fun. I think it's fine. But also, I want them to respect the history that BJJ comes from. Really, you know what I mean?
Well,
So
I think most people don't know the history. Most people don't know the history of MMA. They think they don't even know who Hoist Gracie is. Most of the younger generation, right, that is watching mixed martial arts now, it's like new generation kids playing basketball. A lot of them don't even know who Michael Jordan is.
Yeah.
You know?
Every generation thinks their generation is the best. So you and me, we think our generation is best. We saw the first UFC, blah, blah. But I think with BJJ, because BJJ, the history is only 100 years. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And a big part of that history, again, you know, I hate to date myself, but I remember when IBJJF was nothing, man. They were only having 2 tournaments a year. You know what I mean? Now it's a monster, right? IBJJF, that like, you know,
it's hard to keep up.
IBJJF has become the rule set for BJJ. So what I'm trying to say is I agree with you. A lot of people think IBJJF is BJJ, but that's not true, man.
Yeah.
I remember in the gyms, like, we would train just jujitsu, trying to submit each other. We didn't even know what the points were. We didn't care, you know what I mean? But now you go to gyms and everybody goes IBJJF rules. And I don't agree with that, man. You know, it's like you can only do IBJJF legal techniques while in training. I'm like, IBJJF is just a rule set of BJJ. It is not BJJ. Yeah. To me, BJJ is, again, what, you know, Higgson had to do when he fought Hugo Dorsey on the beach. What Maliji Ismail had to do when he fought, you know, those guys. I think it was Eugenio Tadell. He had to fight those guys, the Lutte Livre guys. You know what I mean? That's BJJ to me. But everybody's entitled to what they think. I mean, you know, everybody has their own idea why they do BJJ. As long as you do BJJ with a good heart, I'm happy for you. Whether or whatever.
I explain it to the guys that when I roll with the guys at my gym, and I explain it to them like, hey, when we roll in the gym, are we counting points right now? Or are we trying to submit each other? We set a time, we slap hands, and then we get to the ground, and we're rolling to submit each other. I don't pass guard it. I say, okay, I hold you for 2 seconds and say points. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing none of that stuff. But
you see a lot of that.
That's weird, though. Like, to me, some guys are not even trying to submit you. They're just trying to make points with you when you're sparring. It's just like, you know, what's the point? That's not self-defense.
Yeah. Which is, it's the mindset. It's more like sometimes I'll train with guys, and it's like you could tell guys that train, like they train with a purpose of self-defense because they're doing everything they can to control you and beat you. Whereas the guys that just do it for sport, like it's more like it's fancy, it's fun, and I like that too. But it's more like, it's like keeping count of the points, keeping count of the rules. Oh, you can't put your foot here. Oh, look at your pinky toe. It went over this thread of my pants. And they'll stop the roll. Like my students do that. Hey, you can't put your fingers inside my pant cuff. I'm like, we're just training, man. You know, it's just training. Shut up. Be quiet. Just keep rolling. You know what I mean? Like, but that's what I mean. Like I said, to me, it's fine. If that's what you enjoy about BJJ, you know, the Meow style, the Mendes style, which is tremendous. That's great. But like I said, I know why I got into it. And, you know, when I remember watching, was the Gracie in action, you know.
Definitely.
Back then, I was a college student in the college library, University of Hawaii. They had those videotapes in their library. I would go to the library. My parents thought I was going to the library to study.
You were studying.
I was studying. I was studying VHS tapes of Gracie. And I remember spending hours in the library just watching Gracie in action. Yeah. And that's what I mean. And later on, you meet these guys. You know, later on, I ended up training with Huron, Henner a little bit. You know, I trained with Helson. And to me, it was larger than life, bro. I was like, no way, man. I was like, you know, like, this is it, man. You know, whatever your reasons for doing BJJ is, we got to honor the roots. That's what I'm saying. So everybody should watch Gracie in action. Everybody should watch, you know, those Lutte Livre versus BJJ fights. And if you don't accept that, if you don't agree with it, you don't want to do it, that's fine. MMA is not for everybody. Judo is definitely not for everybody. But at least understand this is what BJJ started from. Self-defense, man.
What do you think about the whole EBI movement?
Yeah, it's great, man. You know, I think because for EBI, what I like, again, if nothing else, I have nothing against IBJJF. I think they do a great job. But if nothing else, it just gets people to see that there's different aspects of BJJ. It's not just IBJJF. You know what I mean? Because IBJJF, gi and no gi rules are pretty much the same, right? Now you have EBI, they have the combat EBI, right? There's slapping, there's heel hooks, and all stuff. I think you know, and it's getting very popular, obviously. So I think there's a lot of people that they want that stuff. They want more realistic jiu-jitsu. Okay, there's knee bars, there's heel hooks, there's a reaping of the knee, there's slaps to the face, and cool, man. You know, just I guess what I would like to say is I like EBI because it brings balance to the force. I look at jiu-jitsu as the force. IBJJF is one side of the force, right? It's great, but you need balance. You can't just have one rule set, one set of people representing BJJ. I don't agree with that.
Yeah,
I wish
it.
yeah, EBI is awesome, right? So
Yeah.
I wish Metamorphosis was still around. I wish
For sure.
all these events around because we just need to see more, you know, types of these events. Actually, you know, like I trained LA a few years ago, like 10 years ago, there was a gym called Raw Gym, which a lot of famous fighters came out of. Frank Trigg, Vladimir Molchenko. The head trainer, his name was Rico Ciparelli, and he put on maybe one of the first professional submission grappling events. It was called PSL, Professional Submission League. Do you know this event?
No, man. First time I'm hearing.
Bro, it's you gotta look it up. But he had Marcelo Garcia fighting Jake
shit.
Shields, Jacare fighting Randy Couture. It was awesome.
What?
Yeah, I went against Kron Gracie in that event. It was awesome, man. And the point being is, he only had 2 events of it, but it was, and I wish it would stayed around because it was awesome to see wrestlers going against, you know what I mean, like Jacare, you know, BJJ legend against wrestling legend, MMA legend, things of that nature. It was awesome, man. And I wish to see more of that because the guys, like I said, like EBI, what they're doing is they're bringing in MMA guys, right? They're bringing in, you know, not just jiu-jitsu guys. It's different kinds of guys that are getting into it. No-gi guys, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas IBJJF, I feel like it's the highest standard for gi jiu-jitsu, but that's just one part of the force. And
I want to see you on EBI.
I sent Eddie a message. Actually, I know Eddie a long time. I've known Eddie since we were purple belts because he trained with John Jax Machado. I trained with Higa Machado. That's what I started with. So we known each other a long time, man. I used to go to his gym a lot, actually. I remember when he started out at a gym called Bomb Squad. And it was a small garage in LA, man. And what he's become now, I couldn't be happier for him, man. I couldn't be happier for him.
Yeah.
So I sent him messages once in a while. And, you know, I told him, I said, if I survive, if I don't come out of this thing with a broken neck on Saturday, then I want to do combat jiu-jitsu, man. You know,
that'd be awesome.
Thing, you know? Yeah, same thing for me. The one thing you can talk bad about me, just like you could about anybody else. But one thing people can't take away from me is I fought in all these different events, man. You know, I fought in a Grand Prix. I fought in Mongolian wrestling. I fought in judo tournaments. You know what I mean? Like, and if I could say that about combat jiu-jitsu or EBI in general, then, you know, that would be that much, you know, it gives meaning to me. It doesn't have to give meaning to anybody else, but would I get it out of it would be awesome. So we'll see if I can do it, you know.
Well, you know, I know that you came over for the IBJJF to Korea, right? You were judging or not?
Referee,
yeah, you were refereeing over here. I actually got my blue belt from the guy that was running it, Mark.
Mark? Oh, is that right?
I used to train at that gym because I didn't know that you were coming to Korea at that time. So if I would have known that, I would have went over there. But at that time, I wasn't training at that gym anymore because I moved to another place.
Where are you training at now?
I train at another gym that's like a affiliate gym of his gym, MARC. So yeah, I train over there. But yeah, I trained there for like more than 2 years with him. And there's like some pretty decent dudes in there that are, you know, like when I was a white belt, because I grappled a little bit in the States, but like when I was a white belt over there, like sparring with those guys, because they were all like ex Muay Thai champions and those kind of, they all ran gyms and stuff. And I'm the white belt going in there and sparring with them. It was like the best experience to improve so much faster than, you know, going there where everybody's like going slow or soft or whatever. So yeah, it was cool. But yeah, I saw that you visited. What was that last year?
Yeah. They had the IBJJF. It was a good event, man. Mark, I think he does a good job, and he cares about jiu-jitsu. You know, I don't know him super well, but you know, he cares about jiu-jitsu, and that's what I mean. Even the story you just shared, and that's what I was relating to earlier. We all got into this for different reasons, but more often than not, we think about the challenges and the struggles that we overcame to learn jiu-jitsu, to be a part of jiu-jitsu. Nobody knows jiu-jitsu completely, but how worthy was that, right? How much fulfillment did that give you, man? And that's what I'm saying, man. You know, that's why I'm doing this fight 17 years later, man. Like, I remember, even though I didn't win the Grand Prix in my pro debut, that fulfillment it gave me, man. You know what I mean? Like doing something that I didn't think was possible. And if I would ask you 10 years ago, hey, you're going to go wrestle these Muay Thai guys and they're going to slam you on the ground, they're going to choke you. And guess what? You're going to go back and do it again. Maybe you would have thought I was crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think martial arts, especially with BJJ, is something that, you have to experience it to really appreciate it. I think for us, man, like that challenge, that fulfillment, that's something that gives us a lot of reward, man. Gives us a lot of reward.
Sure. And I think for older guys like us, we're kind of older. I'm about 37, 38. I think I'm about to turn 38. I lost my age. You know what I mean?
Wait, man, you look like you're 27, man.
Thanks, man. But like even for you, you're 40. You're a black belt already. You've been a black belt for a long time. That's to me, being a black belt in jiu-jitsu is different from being a black belt in any other martial art. That's just my viewpoint, and I think a lot of people agree with me. So being in that position for you to go to China and like spread the word of jiu-jitsu and like teach people like what you want to spread to them is pretty cool. You know what I mean? Like,
thank you.
Like for
like
in that country.
We'll see on Saturday. I in a lot of ways I feel like this is just I'm a black belt in a sense that my teacher felt I was ready for it, but like I said, I've had time to reflect, and I wasn't ready in a emotional way, in a composure way. When I went on Ultimate Fighter, I fully thought like I went there with the intention to win. I fully thought I was ready for everything, but my composure wasn't. So actually on the show, Tony D'Souza was the assistant coach. He was BJ Penn's assistant coach. Tony D'Souza, awesome fighter, fought the UFC wrestling champion. He was also a BJJ Black Belt. And I was 29 at the time. But I remember on the show, I don't know if they ever showed it or not, but on the show he said something. He said, "You're a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but you're a white belt in your mentality." And I took offense to it. I was like, man, you don't know me. You just know me on the show. But 10 years later, I find that, he knew what he was talking about. He was exactly right. So, thank you for saying, you put a lot of, respect towards BJJ Black Belt because you train it. But honestly, having this time to reflect, like, if I lose composure again on Saturday night, then I'm only a black belt in technique, maybe not a black belt in BJJ. And I really want to be a black belt in BJJ, And I feel like, my contributions BJJ, the love I have for BJJ, it gives me a lot of meaning in life. But I haven't mastered the composure part. I've spent so many years, so many hours on the mat, drilling, competing, refining, sharing, and I'm proud of that. I wouldn't have chosen anything else in life. But this composure part, if I can stay composed Saturday, then I'll really feel like a black belt. I'll feel like a black belt sense. A black belt to me means they've conquered something. They've conquered many challenges in their personal life, their professional life, their technical ability, right? Think of your own training, right? You probably had to rearrange work, your personal relationships to fit anywhere you're training because BJJ is so demanding, right?
Yeah.
And so I've done all that, and so have you. And I've reached black belt. But, if I can conquer this composure issue, not conquer, but control this composure issue, especially Saturday night, then I'll feel much more like a black belt than what I feel like right now. And that's very important to me.
All right, Andy, man, thanks for your time and good luck on Saturday night, August 12th, Rebel FC 5, Quest for Glory. That's a perfect title for you,
What? Composure, man.
Yeah, it should be, Rebel FC 5 Composure, but Quest for Glory sounds good too, right? So, yeah, good luck and thanks for coming on, man. And hopefully in the future, I can catch you. You're a busy man. So hopefully I can catch you.
All over the place.
Yeah, you're all over the place. So thanks, man.